In a typical church, discussions about heavier matters might be the subject for a session in the pastor's study. This is true even in the catacomb chapel of St. Uriel, no matter how different our ministries might be from your typical parish. And let's see what we might find in a very different pastor's study.
Merry meet and blessed be, and welcome to another session, a very different pastor's study. Depending on how you got here, I'm Aiden Odinson, High Priest of the Temple of Gaia, or Bishop Cal Lippitt of the Universal Episcopal Church. Either way, welcome. It's been a while since I've been able to get one of these out, mostly because of all the things that have been going on around here between rainstorms and snowstorms and other such things. But hopefully we're going to have things tied down to the point where we can keep a little bit better of a schedule. Besides, there's some stuff to say and some stuff that I really want to put out and give you some folks some stuff to think about. And in the light of some things going on in the news, might be necessary, and it might be necessary that we start preparing. You never know. I do know that I've certainly heard some interesting quotes from some people who think that they're wanting to be president, and some of those interesting quotes kind of scare me. When we're talking about building a wall or keeping out people based on their religion or whatever else, yeah, that scares me. That really scares me, because if it can happen to one, it can happen to anyone. And that's where the real fear lies. And once again, I see that the atheists and agnostics are at it. And for that matter, they're not far away from the people who call themselves Christians, who are of the Evangelical / Pentecostal variety. Yeah, they're not too far apart. The atheists and agnostics love to complain about us people of faith and love to taunt us. All this terrible stuff going on in the world, and they say, "Where is your God?" And they like to show these pictures of poverty and starvation and the results of war as so-called proof. Well, I got news for them. But then there are those of the Pentecostal and Evangelical persuasions of the Protestant Christians, who seem to be actually waiting for their God to do something, and in between time they'll be claiming that their God is actually doing something, and what you see is God's will. And then, yeah. And then, of course, waiting for God's time. And things will supposedly be happening in God's time. I won't go into the times that I was told about what that Bible verse about the lilies of the field, almost as if somebody expected me to take off my clothes and say, "Okay, God, come and give me some clothes." Was I supposed to wait for Jesus to bring me my next meal? Or a decent pair of shoes that didn't have holes in the soles? There's a problem with when they attribute something to God's will or waiting for God's time. And it's the same thing, really, that the atheists and agnostics are missing. Are these people waiting for God's time or just talking about God's will? Are they behaving like little babies who need mommy or daddy to change their diapers for them? Who need to pick up the bowl of food off the floor after they've tossed it off of the tray in their high chair? Is that what they think we are? No. And here's the lesson, it's the same lesson for those people and the atheists and agnostics. Could it be that God does not expect God to do that? Or goddess, or gods and goddesses, or whatever deities you're talking about? And of course, those who are so egocentric that they think that we humans are the great ultimate being, that there's nothing greater than us. Well, guess what? While we're waiting, supposedly, for God to do something, if these Christians are waiting for God to do something, why don't the atheists and the agnostics take it upon themselves? If they think they're the biggie, doesn't the mantle fall upon them to do something? Now, for those who do follow a deity, the question is almost the same. But we know that we're not the supreme beings or the most supreme of all creation. No, we know that. We know there's someone or something greater than us. But we've been given responsibility. And it's just like if nobody takes out the trash and nobody puts out the trash can by the curb for the trash collector to come and get it, that's because I didn't do it. Same difference, folks. Same difference. Oh yeah. Because I am the one who is responsible for picking up the trash, putting it out, and putting it where the trash collection people can get it. That's for me. And for taking care of our planet and each other, we were given that responsibility. And you know what? Some people really ought to read their own scripture to understand that. Matthew 22:39 concludes with, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." It's right there in the Christian's Bible, even for the ones who want to talk about God's will and God's time. Luke 10, 30 through 37 is a story in which Jesus points out that a Samaritan can count as a neighbor to everybody else. Oh yeah, the story of the Good Samaritan. And I think that's important to point out because guess what? In Jesus' time, among the people that Jesus lived with, the Samaritans were considered a bunch of lowlifes. So, instead of saying Samaritan, if you were to say a gay, or a black, or an undocumented immigrant, I think you get the point. And then, of course, Matthew 25, verses 14 through 29, a parable in which Jesus compares the kingdom of heaven, which I'm going to get into later on because it applies to all of us. But he compares that to a rich man departing on a long trip, and he has 3 servants. And to one he gives 5 talents, to one he gives 2 talents, and to one he gives 1 talent. A talent is a measure of money. And I'm just going to say, for the sake of argument, that we're not going to figure out how much that is in today's dollars, or pounds, or marks. We're just going to say that even 1 talent was considered a pretty good amount of money. He comes back from this long journey, and the one that he entrusted 5 talents with gives him back that 5 talents and another 5 talents on top of that he'd earned with it. The one that was given 2 talents returns the 2 talents plus the other 2 talents that he'd earned with it. So each one of these gave their boss back a 100% return on their investment with him. And he's pleased. And he tells them they'll be put in charge of bigger things. Then along comes the third one, who took his 1 talent and buried it. The boss was not happy with that. He told him outright, you could have taken it to the money lenders and at least you would have gotten interest back. But no, this guy just buried it and kept it there, and so he gave back exactly what he was given. And he gets punished for that. And I think that's got a lot of points to it. And it's points that we need to understand. In other words, we're entrusted with something. We're not just supposed to subdue and dominate it. We're supposed to manage it. So much for where is your God. I know where mine are. I think you know where yours are. Now the problem is, do people understand what a God's job is and what the God trusts us to do? We're tasked with managing what we've been given. We've never been told to squander it or to deny it to our descendants. And we certainly haven't been told that it's okay to make a mess of it. We're given it to manage our world, our environment, and our fellow beings. And once some of the rest of us get that point, we'll be able to do some great things. I'm Biden. Blessed be. This has been a presentation of the Wise Ones Net. Merry part and blessed be.